We are so happy that you could make it.
Yeah, we're delighted. Welcome, everyone. This is only our second live one, so we're just kind of getting used to it, and we're so happy to be here with you for our special evening. And I'm going to hand it over to Christopher to say a little bit about what this evening is about.
Well, I think what we were doing, we were kind of like, what we like to do is brainstorm kind of like offline all together to sort of like see what kind of fresh perspective we can bring to every show that we like to present for you. And so we were thinking about Valentine's Day, and it was like, I mean, not that I'm getting down on Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day is actually really fabulous and fantastic, you know, but it was kind of like, we were going like, well, do we talk about the signs that get along and you know, what's a Cancer like with a Capricorn or a Cancer like with a Scorpio? And then all of a sudden it sort of dawned on us that it might be actually more fun and intriguing to talk about the signs that don't necessarily show up so often in astrological synastry books or pairings or love matches. And so we got to, that really got sort of Yvonne excited. And so she was like, well, what if we did something like we talked about mismatched matches, you know, like the signs that are like not supposed to necessarily click into place, but may very well. I mean, why don't we talk to people about those sorts of things? And so Rachel was immediately like, oh, that's a wonderful idea. I think that's great. And Margaret chimed in, inspired, you know, and so we decided to present today's episode as being based on mismatched matches, and not mismatched matches on what do you do if you're in one, you know, but mismatched matches as how do you bring yourself to the match, you know, how do you communicate maybe to a sign that's not so easy to communicate or that doesn't necessarily come naturally to you. So what we kind of decided that we were going to do is maybe do it as a kind of game, okay, where we will deliberately take a pairing, okay, which is either, let's see, semi-sextile or quincunx. Okay. Other. Okay, so these aren't going to be the typical or the classical Ptolmaeic aspects. Okay, so no squares, trines, oppositions, or conjunctions in today's show. We're going to be talking about the ones that you're not supposed to be getting along with, but maybe you're married to, or maybe that's your kid, or maybe that's the best romance that you ever had in your life. We'll do absent not having a hat with different slips of paper in it, but maybe we can keep a list of the sign pairings that have been named. We can come up with a sign pairing and then just sort of like hand it off to someone, and one of your wonderful relationship and astrology astrologers are going to do a mad riff, okay, on this. So I'm going to start it off, and I'm going to throw to Margaret, who is so wonderfully generous in saying, Christopher, why don't you start this episode?
Thank you, Christopher. Yes. The law of karma, yes.
So I thought I'd start you off with Taurus and Sagittarius.
Well, that's such an interesting match, isn't it? I mean, we've got the bull who wants security, traditionally. By the way, we're talking about moon signs as well as sun signs. We're not just talking about the sun sign, but traditionally Taurus, beauty, security, liking a certain amount of routine, liking certainly, things to be fairly stable. And then we have Sagittarius who wants freedom. I mean, give me freedom, give me space, give me movement, give me change. Talk to me, explain to me the reason why. And the Taurus, like, just feed me, please feed me. So, I mean, but what a wonderful combination, because the Sagittarius really can inspire the Taurus and say, come on, let's go on this adventure. Let's go to Paris next weekend. Well, not quite, of course, with lockdowns and so on, but, let's just do something a little bit different. We don't have to cook lasagna every Friday evening just because it's Friday evening. We can maybe do something we don't usually do. And the Taurus can bring incredible stability to the Sagittarian in terms of really creating that grounding, that foundation, because Sagittarius, I always think of it as the kind of airiest of the fire signs, that it's really, really kind of wants that expansive and that intellectual stimulation as well. And so it can really fire up the Taurians. So I think it can be quite an amazing match, actually. What about you, Rachel? What do you think of that combination?
I love everything that you said. And one thing I find too is that when we're talking about compatibility, and particularly sun sign compatibility, that often it's the people who stretch us and who, push our buttons or who challenge us in some ways to grow. Those are the relationships that have the glue. They are the ones that stick. You're not going to get bored. And for a Sagittarius, I think that's a really important thing. And for a Taurus, a Taurus is going to stay committed no matter what. So they don't necessarily, they wouldn't necessarily, I should say, they're a fixed sign. So fixed signs tend to stick with it and see how they can make the relationship work, even if there are challenges. So I think that's another aspect of compatibility that I love to see. I love to see oppositions. I love to see squares. I love to see quincunxes. I love to see the nitty gritty hard stuff in relationship charts. So,
yeah, definitely. I think sometimes the harder aspects are what we are seeking in a way, the way that you're conveying it, Rachel. It's that we are going to find out more about ourselves through the relationship. We discover parts of ourselves that we are not always so tuned into through our partner. And some of these harder aspects that we have classically named can really invite that kind of self-knowing. So it's really kind of exciting. What's another one that we could think of an odd combination, typically not the classic?
Well, I think Margaret has to come up with it, and she has to pass.
Well,
it's hot potato.
Well, actually, I was kind of thinking about Aries and Scorpio, but of course they're both Mars ruled.
Well,
So even
Aries and
though,
Scorpio, and let Rachel or Yvonne play with it.
or you.
yeah, I think I'm going to actually, I might hand it right back to you, Christopher, actually.
Well, okay, Aries and Scorpio. What I like to look at when I'm looking at signs that are supposedly not supposed to get along is to look at what the similarities are and the dissimilarities are. Okay, like for instance, just to sort of note really quick to me, something that would be intriguing about Taurus and a Sagittarius is that they're both ruled by benefics. Okay, Taurus is ruled by Venus, and Jupiter is ruled by, Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. So there's a kind of inherent optimism to both signs. So that's something that I just sort of wanted to scratch or underline really quickly. Now, when we're dealing with Aries and Scorpio, it's a fascinating combination because they're both ruled by the same ruling planet. The way that I work with ruling planets, what astrologers do, so I'll take complete, if you're going to fire arrows over here. Okay, but the way that I work with ruling planets is that it's the planet that rules the sun sign, which is the one that rules you, you as a person. So what Aries and Scorpio both have in common is Mars. Okay, so there is a combative element, a rugged element to both. It can be feisty, it can be bitey, it can be combative naturally.
Oh, I think Christopher froze
did.
for a second.
Oh, he did.
Oh, dear.
Good point, too.
That was quite a dramatic point where you froze. You froze and combative.
I freeze. I went, where did it go? Hot. Did I say hot?
No, you didn't get to hot, but you can say hot now.
It's a very, very hot combination. But what I think is so intriguing about the temperaments, we can get a little bit more information when we bring Pluto into the situation looking at Scorpio. Aries is a spring. All the spring signs to me are very optimistic. They want to get up and going. They're kind of like the go-getters of the zodiac, all three of them, Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. And so with Aries, there's that sort of like, I want to be first and I want to go right at the situation. Scorpio is actually the sign that follows the autumnal sign. Okay, so it's in the heart of fall or autumn. So I kind of feel like we have here Freud's Eros and Thanatos. You have the energy of the Aries along with the Thanatos, the melancholic, flavor of the Scorpio. Also, the way that they process anger is very different. if Aries is angry at something, they get really angry. There's something against the wall and they're over it. You know, the fire burns the anger out. Whereas the anger with Scorpio can have a tendency to stay with the sign and to linger with it. And so Scorpions can have much more difficulty exercising the anger. And some Scorpios don't even want to. You know, they want to actually rely on the anger because it gives them that sort of Red Bull burst of energy or strength. Water signs have a tendency to be sensitive. So Scorpios can be like, I'm being too sensitive. So they want, you know, that more of that Marsy energy there. So it can be a very sexual, very erotic combination, but it's going to be a combination in which they're going to have to understand that they fight differently. Okay, Aries angry, I've got to get it out. You know, Scorpio angry, simmering, I'm not going to talk about it. You know, Aries like, you know, can be clueless. Like, I didn't know that you were angry. Scorpio, you know, scoring up the points because you know, so being able to talk about how they fight, okay, but being able to talk about how they fight and the different ways that they fight, I think can do a lot to sort of like take care of misunderstandings and lower the walls that can go up when one's carrying a grievance.
Oh, excellent, Christopher.
I love that. Anything else, Yvonne or Rachel, did you want to add into that?
No, I mean, I think that really sums it up. That sums it up well.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got the potato. So, Rachel, I'm throwing you Taurus and Libra.
Oh, this is a great combination. And this is Yvonne and I.
Yeah.
Yes. So, you know, I think on the surface, Taurus and Libra are both ruled by Venus. And so you have an appreciation for beauty, an appreciation for art, similar probably aesthetic sensibilities, depending on where Venus is and other chart factors. But, you know, both of these signs are going to be interested in an sensual experience of love. For Libra, it's more of an idea. Like Libras love the idea of love, like love the idea of romance, love the idea, you know, things can be kind of in the head. And Taurus really grounds that energy. So it grounds the romance, it grounds the love in a sensual, physical experience. And so I think that can be a really nice balance where, you know, anytime we're mixing air and earth, we have an ability to kind of mix like a lift, like the air lifts the earth and the earth grounds the air. The other thing too about this combination is that there tends to be a real, and I'm just going to mute anyone who's just so that we don't have feedback. But the other thing about this combination is, you know, they will likely have shared interests, things that they want to do together. You know, this might not be the couple that goes and hikes the Alps. This might be the couple that goes, you know, vacations and in a place where they're really enjoying like, you know, shopping, like good food, fine wine. You know, they're going to have a strong sense of wanting to be around beauty, culture. Where we get into challenges, though, is that Libra tends to need a little bit more freedom, a little bit more. This is something that not many people know about Libras, but I can tell you as a Libra that you know, we are very relational because we have that Venus, that we're ruled by Venus. We are the relationship sign. But if we feel too stuck or too tied down, then that gets really frustrating and we can get restless. And often, you know, Taurus might be more comfortable with staying home or, you know, not being as social, and Libra really needs a lot of social time. They tend to need more air activity. So air meaning conversation, meaning a variety of experiences. And even if they're introverted, that there's still an intellectual curiosity that makes them want to go out of the relationship, not like in a cheating way, but that they need fulfillment and they get energy from their environment, from other people, from ideas. And so, Taurus is going to be fine within that unit. And there could be some frustration there, just in terms of Libra getting a little bit restless or needing a little bit more air.
I think it's an incredibly creative combination, though. I mean, to think, anything that's Venus ruled, about the beauty, the sense of beauty, the sense of creativity. I always often think of Taurus, though, as kind of, there's an earthy, again, back to that earthy groundedness of Taurus. And Libra is much more that kind of airy lightness of the kind of more, it's like the beauty of art, that's the beauty of art in nature and the beauty of art on a painting that's hanging on the wall. The difference between the two, the one is very tangible and tactile and sensual, and the other has a kind of aesthetic beauty that is kind of a little bit removed. And I think it's all about bridging those differences, isn't it? It's how to create bridges across those differences, regardless of what the signs are. So how does Taurus create a bridge with Libra? And in a way, what you're saying, Rachel, is really by giving some space to Libra. And then Libra is creating a bridge with Taurus by connecting, even though the Libra might feel like a bit like, I want a bit of space, but actually I'll make the effort to connect in a tactile, conscious way. Even, I mean, I imagine as a couple, because we're talking about Valentine's Day, but holding hands, that kind of physical connection that can reassure the Taurus that their partner is there right beside them and tactile. And the Taurus might at other times then kind of, give the Libra a little bit of space to maybe go out and be social with their friends rather than necessarily just being at home. So I think we can always create, really, as astrologers, that's what we're doing. We're helping people as relational astrologers create bridges, aren't we, between people to facilitate that connection.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is, and then I'm going to pass the potato, but I think the other thing too to keep in mind when we're talking about compatibility is that, each one of us has the entire zodiac in our charts. And so while our sun signs might be, in a quincunx relationship with our partner's sun sign, we have that planet or that sign represented in our charts. And so I think a lot of times relationships help us fill in the gaps of what we can't see about ourselves.
And also about the moon, back to the moon. I know I keep harping on about the moon, but if our moon is kind of in a sign that we can relate in an element that is more easily relatable, like water and earth and fire and air, that makes all the difference, really, I think, because we can always express our sun sign out with our friends or in our external life, but once we're with our significant other, it's that moon that's so important.
Yeah,
by far.
Well, we have a lot of signs to get through, so pitch that, Rachel.
Right. I'm going to pass it to Yvonne.
Okay.
And I'm going to give you a really fun one. Leo and Capricorn.
Ooh. So we've got two very different energies. We've got that fire and earth in one way. And I know you're going to help me with this, Christopher, being a Capricorn, right? And then we've got, the rulership. We've got the Saturn, and we have the sun. So what are we going to kind of do in this mix-up between these two? This kind of, the Leo and the Capricorn will both, I think, kind of look for a quality of being achievement-oriented or being seen in a particular way and having a kind of a quality of presence in how they prefer to be shown in the world and received. And so I think there's kind of a compatibility with that. But I would also imagine that the fiery nature of the Leo is going to have more energy for engagement and outward going versus the Capricorn is just a little bit more inward and sedate and having more need to have kind of more security perhaps in its realm. What do you think, Christopher?
Well, that was quick.
Oh, I'm working with a deficit here today.
Something that comes to mind when I see both of them is that they're both patrician signs. In my view, Leo and Capricorn are both very much caught up with the father. Okay, and so regardless of what the gender is, there's a tendency to be very patrician. I think that Leo is much more comfortable in being who it is. You know, you don't say, I've never heard a Leo say, oh, I need to be my authentic self. I think that idea would be foreign to a Leo. It's like, whatever self would I be? Of course I'm authentic. I'm who I am. I just showed up. Okay. So Leos are, and this is really the beauty of Leo that I find sometimes gets a lot of bashing, which is not good, which is this is a sign that stands for individuality more so than the other signs do. You know, I mean, if you didn't have Leo, you would have cookie cutter cutout copies. Okay, so Leo is really standing in its own orb of light. It's ruled by the sun. So there's no nighttime with a Leo. It's daytime constantly. They're walking around in an orb of light. Okay, so being recognized, being comfortable with being recognized, realizing that they're the name that sells the tickets, or that they're the art that turns a meal into a dining experience. You know, this is what Leos naturally do. Okay, it's something that Capricorns do with great stress, great effort, and hard work. Okay, Leos have a kind of like spontaneity and in the moment quality, whereas a Capricorn has almost a dirge-like obsession with consequences, circumstances. What, you know, it's much more time conscious. How much time is leaving? How much time do I have left? I have to make something of this. And of course, the great moment of joy is when a Capricorn can make something look spontaneous or of the moment. They actually strive to create that, but they go through a lot of thinking or actions that are not spontaneous. So what they both have in common is really a seriousness about the relationship, okay, that they're going to be setting up. And remember, they're two parental signs. So there's seriousness about family, however family may translate. That might be kids, that might be pets, that might be 50 ballet dancers in a company, you know, that, you know, like are perpetually between the ages of 18 and 34. Okay, but what I'm saying is that sense of responsibility and family is very important. And also community, you know, so very much like maybe being a pillar of the community or a pillar of the family, or they're the couple that the two families or everyone's families come to for advice, you know, and so a Leo and a Capricorn very much will be in each other's corner. And I think they'll be very sensitive about not showing any of the personal stuff out in public. Okay, that if there's personal or tension or whatever, that's in the private. You know, what happens in the dressing room stays in the dressing room, because we have to present, you know, and so that's something that I think is very important. I think Leo warms up Capricorn a lot and gets Capricorn to be a bit more daring. And I think actually Capricorn, because they age backwards, kind of bring a vitality to the older years of Leo that they might not have been expecting, you know, so there's that really kind of wonderful tag team effort that goes on between the two of them.
Well, we're missing our Leo member, Armand, tonight, of course, who couldn't make it, unfortunately. Otherwise, we would have had him contribute to the Leo piece.
Yeah,
that would be great.
And Karen in the chat says that that's what she is. She's a Leo with a Capricorn. Did that make sense, Karen? Did you resonate with that?
Somewhat, yes. I think this is 30-year relationship plus. Okay. And I think there was a real attraction at the beginning, and I think each one was trying to please the other one and everything, but now it's getting to be really, really difficult.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, extremely difficult, really, which, you know, it's blended families and anyway, trying circumstances a little bit. So I don't know.
Those signs are going through stressful transits right now.
Definitely.
I think so, because, well, there's a lot of things. He had cancer and everything, and he's gotten over that. But so a lot of issues. Parents have died, so a lot of stress. And we were doing really good until I guess he got cancer and everything. And he's over all of that. But now it just seems like he's building a house for his son. And I think his financial problems and everything. And I've got a lot of businesses. So it's just a lot of stress. But he is just like, totally, you can't talk to him. So I'm wanting to have fun and still feel young. And he's just like old age, which he's been telling me that since we were 50. I'm 67 now, and I've known him since I was 25.
Which sign is which?
I'm Leo. I'm a Leo Aquarius with a Sag moon.
Okay.
And he is, which I'm wondering about his year of birth, because his father supposedly changed his year of birth, but he's born overseas. But he's Capricorn, Libra rising, and a Cancer moon.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. So the water moon and the fire moon, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was a lot of sexual. We were really, like a lot of fire and really good times. But then it got to be, like I said, the seriousness and business and, opposing. It just has not been good lately. So that's why I'm
so sorry, Karen, share this. I'm sorry. I hope it gets a little bit easier. I think one of the great things is, in astrology is we can look at the transits, we can look at what's happening, we can look at the timing of things, and it's kind of just reassuring and gives a little bit of comfort and kind of gives the context and the wider picture of what's happening. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, he's hurting a whole lot, and I think that's part of it. And I said, well, I've had other people that were older and that hurt, and they weren't grumpy. So, and he's really bad when he comes home at night, and he's very grumpy. So I don't know.
Just with mortality, I mean, which is not something we talk a lot about.
Sure.
But those episodes of what I call brushes with mortality. Let's say it's a health issue. It could also be a financial issue.
Yes.
Where it throws you. He
thought he was going to die, so he decided to build his son this $2.5 million house. So
what are you doing?
Yes. So, and I'm feeling, and then it's bitterness because he's been with me all these years, sort of, and we were married and got a divorce thanks to my father. He worked for my father for 28 years, and as soon as it was fine, except as soon as we got married, my father. But then they got better. But anyway, it's been a lot of trying years.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Sorry, I didn't get into
we
it.
really appreciate it. I think we've got another question from somebody, Rachel.
It's how would you explain sun square moon aspects in the self and in relationships? That's a really good question. It's a little bit off topic from what we're talking about today, because we're really focusing on just on sun signs and mismatched matches. But I think maybe actually what we could do is another whole episode on sun moon, on the natal lunation cycle, and how that plays out in relationships.
Let's do that. Yeah, we can do that maybe next month. So join us again next month. Thank you. That's a wonderful question.
Aries and Pisces.
Aries and Pisces. Okay.
Who caught that?
Who's that to Christopher?
He's passed.
Is that to Rachel? I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, go. Good. Go, Rachel.
Okay. So Aries and Pisces, we're dealing with a fire-water situation. And so just looking at the elements, we know that water extinguishes fire. But an Aries is not one to quell their fire. So as Margaret might attest. What I find about this dynamic is that there's a lot of creative potential. Pisces can be such a dreamer, and they have these ideas and these creative visions, and Aries has the initiative to make it happen. Where Pisces kind of doesn't always have that motivation. And so Aries is ruled by Mars, and Pisces is ruled by Neptune. And that Mars energy, I think, really adds a nice dynamic to this relationship that can help Pisces to materialize some of their goals and some of their dreams. And then I think Pisces softens Aries. I actually have two clients, a couple who I adore, and this is them. And what tends to happen, Pisces can be a little bit sensitive, and especially if we're talking about someone with, and I think I think it's important to know too that often signs that are adjacent to one another, you can have planets in the adjacent sign. So like Mercury stays close to the sun, Venus stays close to the sun. So you might have a Pisces with an Aries Mercury, or a Pisces with, it could be an Aquarius Mercury, or Venus rather. And so often we, planets in signs that are next to each other will share commonalities. But I think one thing that can happen in a Pisces Aries dynamic is that Aries tends to be very direct and Pisces tends to be very sensitive. And Pisces is picking up on all kinds of energy and emotion, and Aries can go from 0 to 65 in 2 seconds. But then they hit their temper, they fire it up, they say something and they're like pissed off, and then they can let it go. Whereas Pisces holds on to it, and it becomes something that they'll replay in their minds over and over again. You said this. And Aries is like, yeah, I said it, but I'm over it. I'm good now. And Pisces is like, but I'm not. It's still here. It's in my heart. And so one thing that I think this couple needs is to find ways to communicate. So Aries might even say, hey, don't take this personally, but you didn't do the dishes again. Or, I'm channeling my Aries right now. I can't believe you said that, or this is never going to happen. And Pisces is like, oh, and so I think that for Pisces, it's important to know that that Aries, that once Aries expresses an emotion of anger, frustration, or happiness or joy, that doesn't stay with them. And so they are not inclined to stay angry or stay upset. And for Pisces in this relationship, it's extremely important to be direct, to not like close off and pout, or to not speak your mind, because Aries wants to know where you stand so that they can figure out how to be. And I think that this is really important. But yeah, a lot of creative.
Sorry, Rachel.
No, go ahead.
The Aries butting in with the Libra, the poor Libra. But I think it's also that Aries is so much about action, and Pisces is a lot about dreaming and being. And I think that's one of the benefits, though, that it really makes the Aries kind of just give permission to the Aries to just be, to just, sit on the couch and do nothing. And it helps the Pisces to manifest their creativity, because Pisces can be immensely creative, but sometimes they find it hard to actually do something with it. And the Aries will say, come on, let's take a chance. Let's do that. Let's, you want to paint, or you want to draw, or you want to learn a language, just do it. And so that can work incredibly well. It's the extent to which when the Aries starts getting too pushy, or the Pisces just refuses to do anything, where I think with these combinations of signs, that's really the key. It's the extreme to which we are that sign. It's how amenable are we to be flexible and to recognize that the other person, what the other person's needs are, and how they're very different to ours, and how much are we prepared to compromise. And of course, there are times in our lives when we can compromise, and other times when we're up to here with our own stuff and it's very difficult. Or when it's an Aries parent and the child is a Pisces and they've got to get the child to school, as was my experience, get him to school, get him ready. And it's like there wasn't time to daydream or to talk about the storybook or whatever. It was like, you've got to get to school. So it's a case of lifting the child half dressed in the car and driving them to school. So I think, the child ends up in school in tears because they haven't had time to look at their storybook or whatever. So it's that kind of how to bridge those streams when it gets that extreme. And I think that's the case with all these combinations.
A quick note, I think the thing that they have to both watch out for is the rescue me complex. Pisces can get into damsel or dude in distress, and Aries loves a good quest, a good rescue.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Really.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good
Savior, the knight in shining armor, here I come with my horse. Yes.
That's something to keep in mind, because Aries might take on the role of always rescuing and not really realize when Pisces become sort of like self-sufficient or able to take care of something. And so the Aries might be like, well, let me do that for you. You can't do that. And so Aries can, without meaning to, end up limiting or getting in the way of Pisces because they've told themselves this person always needs rescuing. So I think it's really important for Aries to recognize that. Aries have a hard time if they're not doing the rescuing. You know, it's kind of like, well, what am I so, you know, so it's very important for them to kind of like understand that when Pisces is trying to communicate, I don't need rescuing, or you know, you said you wanted to hear what I had to say, I'm trying to talk, but you're talking at the same time, you know, that sort of thing.
But I think you're bringing up a really important point, Christopher, and that is, you know, just with this one example is how you know, our relationships can kind of get us stuck if we're not paying attention into patterns that don't really help us. You know, you can see where the Pisces person will stay in a passive state because the Aries person is holding the more active principle. And then you kind of stay in a habitual motion in that way. And it's waking up to usually a transit that comes into the coupledom that forces another kind of mode of understanding how to go forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Potato and Rachel.
All right, Margaret. Gemini Scorpio.
Oh, wow, that's an interesting one. Okay. So we've got the depths of passion and privacy and kind of being cautious and taking a long time to trust and loyal for life, with the communicator and the kind of the wanting to be everybody's friend and to hear everything that's going on and to be in the middle of everything and to want a lot of stimulation. I mean, that's quite a couple. I mean, really quite a couple. And, you know, I'm thinking that the interesting thing is that the Gemini can really help the Scorpio to come out of themselves, and maybe in a playful, fun way, so that they can gently tease the Scorpio, and there can be a lot of fun there because the Scorpio can have a lot of fun in that kind of dry way and really can enjoy being pulled out, even though they pretend they don't, and they really, you know, they're kind of irritated, but actually they're kind of really enjoying it and flirting. And the Gemini can flirt with the Scorpio, and I think the Scorpio can really anchor the Gemini and really connect them with their passion and with, you know, I mean, the Gemini is the twins. There's the light and the serious twin, and I think often we talk about the lightness of Gemini, but there's also an incredibly serious side to Gemini that often isn't shown or isn't exposed, that kind of gets a little bit more hidden. And I think Scorpio can really connect with that more serious side of Gemini, that more intense side of Gemini, and the very intellectual side of Gemini, and can really help the Gemini also come from their head into their body and into the sexual realm, into the sensual realm, into the physical realm, much more into that kind of primal side of our humanity, which I think Gemini can sometimes orbit with all these amazing ideas and interests and connections, and lose touch with their own body and lose touch with that side of us that really needs that passion to connect in a passionate way. So I think it can be an enormously playful combination. I think it's how to, I guess the areas where there needs some bridges is that Gemini can really sometimes not recognize the extent to which loyalty is crucial to the Scorpio, and that once trust is broken, it's very hard to rebuild that trust with the Scorpio, and that the Scorpio will be loyal for life, but it's fine with the Gemini being playful as long as it doesn't stray. So betrayals of any kind could break a relationship pretty kind of, there may be no repairing done to that for the Scorpio. And the Scorpio needs to, a little bit like some of the other combinations with Libra, needs to kind of not be maybe so possessive with the Gemini. And if there's a good relationship of trust, allow the Gemini to go off and be with their friends and be playful or whatever. And the Scorpio can just do their thing and listen to their music and brood away and feel whatever they're feeling, and really give permission to the Gemini to just, pursue their other connections, or be on the internet all night, or be on the phone all night with their friends or whatever, as long as the Scorpio isn't jealous. I think jealousy can get a little bit in the way with Scorpio, and so to be careful not to suffocate the Gemini. I think that's important, and for the Gemini not to kind of really not meet the needs for the Scorpio in that depth. So I think if they can both learn to bridge those differences, then I think it can be very, very creative, and the Gemini can really help the Scorpio to articulate their feelings, because Scorpio can be such a pre-verbal sign that there can be an enormous amount of feelings there, and it's so hard to get them out. And the Gemini can really help them to articulate them, so give a voice to their significant other's feelings, which is amazing. I mean, that's a real gift.
Oh my God.
Anybody else, any thoughts on that combination?
Oh, I knew a couple with this dynamic, and I think what I saw was the depth of the Scorpio, helping kind of deepen the Gemini aspect, just the sense of, purpose and aim in life, as well as the Gemini bringing a more playful kind of awareness to the Scorpio, who wanted to stay broody and hidden in the corners when things didn't go wrong. This person could lift her out. It was really kind of lovely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one thing too.
So I'm going to throw. Sorry.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead. We'll move on. We're.
No, I was getting ready to throw a potato. So.
It's left in the show. So. Go ahead.
No. Let's go ahead. Let's move on. Let's go to another combo. Go ahead, Margaret.
Okay. How about Cancer and Aquarius? We haven't done those two yet, have we?
We haven't. I've been keeping the list.
Yvonne, would you like to go?
I will give it a go. I'm a little limited today, but let's give it a go. So we've got the very family-oriented, childlike quality of Cancer, and the more airy, more outward, universal kind of collective orientation of the Aquarius together. And I'm trying to think of the two that I know and those two polarities, and they're not quite polarities, but the dynamics of those, of air to water, is again bringing a capacity of emotion that the Cancer carries, of depth of emotion, but also in the way that they can also be very protective about their feeling states. And the Aquarius tends to be much more open and more verbal in articulation. It kind of is similar to what we were talking about with the last pair in some ways, with that capacity of the inner and the outer is being held by the relationships in its way of holding each other. So I'm going to keep asking for support today, just because my brain is in vaccine mode. So if anybody can jump in here.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind with me is intimacy. Cancer has that bondedness, that intimacy, that wanting to be close, And so I think what Cancer brings to Aquarius is that intimacy. Aquarians have a tendency to be more remote, or cool. And that's not because they're all Vulcans or anything like that. It's because of the time of year that they're born, which is the heart of winter. Okay, so this is when, the sun is really the furthest away and it's not that warm. And so Aquarians have that. And then there's also cerebral quality. But I think what happens is that the Cancer kind of brings where Aquarius wants to sort of be the family of man and its thinking, and was everyone in the group heard and things like that. And it can get a little political. That's got nothing to do with political parties, but dealing with people's priorities on a collective or group level. Cancer brings the intimacy to that. It reminds the Aquarian, you might be talking about these governments structures in Uzbekistan, but at the end of the day, are they getting enough to eat? And, are they being able to take care of loved ones? So Cancer will always bring that intimacy to the Aquarius. And I think that what Aquarius brings to Cancer is kind of opening up the vision. Cancers, because of their connection to hearth and home and roots, can get a little tribal. And so Aquarians can kind of like open up the picture to people have different families than the white picket fence you might be envisioning, or people have different families that aren't based on the grandparents babysitting the kids, so the different understanding of what a family can be, you know, or how a society can be made up is something that the Aquarius can bring to the Cancer that can really open up kind of their imagination or their references, you know. So I would throw out that idea. I think what's so important is, again, is that dynamic between water and air. Water feels, it just wants to feel, it doesn't want to talk about it. Air wants to talk about it, you know, it never saw a feeling that it didn't want to analyze, you know, or pick up and look on the underside of, you know. So this is something in which the air sign helps the water sign to speak emotions, but then the water sign is also reminding air signs of, don't use my words against me. You know, don't take things out of conversation and use them against me and read them like a court stenographer back to me. You know, it's like, have some sensitivity with my feelings that are here. And so Cancers will actually build up in Aquarius a respect and appreciation for the emotional life.
Well, it's also about empathy, isn't it? I think the water signs teach the air signs that feelings, the world of empathy, how to empathize rather than just analyze a feeling, because that's really what the water wants, isn't it? It's like, you know, tell me how you are. Oh, I'm so sorry you're feeling sad, rather than, oh, are you feeling sad because so-and-so did this or that or the other, blah, blah, blah. So that's the different quality, isn't it, about it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was thinking too, another take on just the Cancer to Aquarius, it's like the quintessential symbols for blended family, you know. The you know, you bring all the different kids together, you might have stepsons, you might have adopted children, and everybody's included. It's all part of the same group, and that's some kind of piece that they can hold.
What that also brings to mind with me is belonging.
Yes.
You know, Aquarians always feel like they belong. You know, like they're the outsider, or they're the one who's different or apart or eccentric, or, you know, and I think that Cancer really brings that sense of belonging to a relationship with an Aquarius. And I think that that is just so powerful. You know, it's not, I don't think it's the sort of thing that an Aquarian would say or think of right away, but I think it's something that they really appreciate, you know, as the relationship matures. Yvonne, who you can throw the potato to?
Okay. Well, I know you just talked, so maybe I go to Rachel. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What are we thinking here?
You could do Virgo with somebody.
Yeah.
I know, I was just thinking that. Let's do Virgo with Scorpio.
That's a sextile.
Sextile.
Yeah. Which is actually.
Oh, is it too matchy? Do we want to mix?
Virgo and Aries, maybe.
Virgo and Aries. Yes. Okay. There we go. I like that combo. With this, you know, I feel like this is a really industrious pair.
Wow.
You know, because Aries has the ideas, they've got that fire, they can motivate the Virgo, and the Virgo is the one who digs their heels in and gets things done. So they're the one to organize Aries' vision and to keep them going. One of the challenges with this relationship pairing, I think, could be control. And particularly for the Aries does not want to feel controlled, and some of the meticulous organization of the Virgo might feel really restrictive to an Aries. But if the Aries can realize that actually that's support, and if the Aries can accept that as support, then I think they can really accomplish a lot together. You know, this is a pair that has an ability to combine the real, you know, sort of dynamic, charismatic qualities of Aries with the grounded, practical, dedicated day-to-day follow-through with Virgo. And so I think that there's a lot of potential here. For Virgo, I think one of the challenges is going to be feeling like they're in the shadows, or feeling like Aries is the one who's calling all the shots and I'm getting the leftovers, or I'm stuck with the grunt with all the hard work. But I think that can be a pattern for Virgos in general. and a life pattern. And so one of the things that I think for Virgos is the opportunity is to push back, is to say no sometimes, or to let Aries leave the dishes. I keep using the dishes in the sink. This is not a problem I have in my relationship, but it's kind of like, you know, one of those typical things, like leave the dishes in the sink sometimes. Let the Aries have their drawer be a mess. You know, you don't have to take responsibility for all of the details of the relationship or the home. And I think that that's really important. And delegate, get help. And I think for Virgo, it's really, you know, this is the sign of selfless service. Virgos are very giving, and they often give and it goes unnoticed. They'll clean out the cat litter. They'll, you know, do the chores, and they won't raise a lot of attention to it. Whereas Aries is like, hey, I did this thing. And I want everybody to know it. Aries, you know, the sun is exalted in Aries. Yeah. And so I think for Virgo, draw attention to yourself sometimes. Say, hey, I did the cat litter today, or look at the house, it's cleaned. Or, and I'm using really simple examples, but I think for Virgo, pat yourself on the back, really receive acknowledgement and ask for it.
I think one of the things with Virgo to be careful of is the pickiness, that Aries can be full of enthusiasm and then Virgo breaks it all down into minute place. It's like, you know, Aries might say, let's go off and have a picnic. And then Virgo starts saying, well, it's actually going to rain, so we might need a thing, and maybe it's not worth it. And what food will we bring? Because we haven't got enough food and we can't make this and that. So sometimes Virgo can break it down so much that by that stage, the Aries has even forgotten what the original enthusiasm was about. So I think Aries can kind of help the Virgo by saying, look, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can just be a sandwich on the grass. You know, we love each other and we're going to have a lovely time together. And so the Virgo doesn't have to feel super duper responsible for it all to be perfect. I think the other thing that they connect on is that the Aries wants to rescue, be the knight in shining armor, and the Virgo wants to be of service. And together they can really do quite a lot in the world. So I think they're amazing as business colleagues or as friends, because I think they can really achieve a lot if they, you know, and I think all relationships, it's really about finding what is our purpose for the rest of humanity as well as for ourselves. And I say both want to make a difference. And I think together with the detail of Virgo and then the enthusiasm and the kind of adventurous, I suppose, courage of Aries, really they can move mountains. I've seen incredible things being done in the world, you know, in terms of making change for you know, causes with Aries and Virgo together.
Okay, potato.
All right, Christopher, I'm handing it back to you.
Okay.
And let's see, who have we not? We haven't heard a lot from Sagittarius.
Okay.
So let's do Sagittarius. We did Sagittarius Taurus. How about Sagittarius Capricorn?
Oh, the ones right next to each other.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought
That's a good one.
Unless you'd rather do Sagittarius Cancer.
the potato.
What's that?
You're in charge of the potato, whichever
Okay.
one.
Capricorn, Sagittarius. I think Sagittarius Capricorn.
Okay, Sagittarius Capricorn. The first thing that comes up to me is Sagittarius is very much about belief. And it's very much about connecting to its higher purpose. Sagittarius is a very moral sign. It's not something that we really talk about a lot with the sign, but it's a very moral sign. It believes that there is a moral force of justice in the universe, that there is such a thing as good or bad. That might be translated in all sorts of different types of contexts. But a Sagittarius is willing to go through difficulty. I find that a Sagittarius is willing to go through difficulty as long as there's a lesson learned or a moral to the tale. Okay, then they'll slug through anything. So for Sagittarius, we often talk about, you know, the charisma. We also often talk about enthusiasm. It's really huge with the sign. Sagittarius is the cheerleader of the zodiac. They're always encouraging people to go and do things that they would never do in a million years. So, you know, Sagittarius is really about the power of belief and of faith. And the opposite of that, of course, is doubt. And that's where we have Capricorn. Okay. So Capricorn is full of doubt, and it can even get Kierkegaardian, fear and trembling, but within that Capricornness, I often call Capricorns closet optimists. Okay. They really want to believe that everything's going to turn out well. And I do think that inherently they do, but there's something about that Peanuts Linus blanket of security, which they envelop themselves in their worst case scenario. Capricorns love their worst case scenario.
Yes.
So bad, it's going to be worst case scenario. There's going to be we're going to owe all of this money and just and then what happens is that worst case scenario is much darker than what takes place, and that's when the Capricorn can go, it wasn't that bad, but they don't say it out loud. They don't want the universe to be like, Capricorn, did you get away with something? And so they hold on to that wonderful sense of relief that comes when the experience wasn't so worst case as all of that. And that lasts for a little while, and then the worst case scenario starts in again. Okay, and then they go back to that. So the thing is, Capricorns are not the great spoilers that everyone's trying to make them out to be. What they are is that they live with fear, and fear can do one of two things. It can paralyze you in your tracks, and that's when it can lead to things like depression or anxiety, things like that. Or the fear is the thing that prods you forward. Now, Capricorns never expect to master their fear. Okay, they never expect to master it. The fear never goes away. Fear is always there, but fear is also the thing that's moving them up the mountain. Okay, that's making them go out and do. And so I think where the two of them come together is a very strong sense of God. I think that's something that they share, and I'm deliberately using the word God and not religion. Okay, because it's what kind of God are they dealing with? Is it Sagittarius, a god of benevolence? Is it Capricorn, the god that Job had to contend with, who railed on him, plagues and all these sorts of things. And so I think in that sense of what is God, it actually brings the two of them together. It's more than shared beliefs. It's actually, I think, a very, very soulful type of thing. Typically we can talk about how Sagittarius will warm up the Capricorn. Capricorn, I want everyone to notice how we're using the word grounding. Okay, being a Capricorn, I think the real word everyone was using for these relationship analysis was funding. Okay, the earth signs fund. Okay, signs like Libra, or they fund the Sagittarius.
Did you mean fund as in financial funding?
F-U-N-D, right, the one who's right.
Okay, interesting.
But what they have together can be this incredible sense of purpose, where I think the more that they're with each other, the more out of the closet with the optimism the Capricorn becomes, and the more willing to look at the downside of something without a fear that I'm going to go down into a dark, dismal depression. It makes Sagittarius more comfortable with looking at the underside of things without feeling like they have to keep the energy up the whole time. So that's how I would.
Well, it's kind of interesting, because I was thinking about how, I remember years ago when I was first studying astrology, and I can't remember who it was, one of my lecturers said, but they said, one of the things Sagittarius can struggle with is the painful side of life, and I was thinking it's kind of interesting because Capricorn instead embraces it. It's like this is part of it. And I think it can really help Sagittarius that it doesn't mean its light has to go out if life is painful. It means it really helps Sagittarius to integrate that and to still maintain their joy and to still maintain who they are. And I think that's quite an incredible gift. And meanwhile, Sagittarius helps Capricorn not to disappear into just pain, into just hardship, into just limitations. So there's expansion and limitation. And again, how to find that point of balance. And I think what we've been really, I'm conscious we're kind of coming to the end of our time, but what we've really been talking about a lot this evening has been helping really for couples to find that point of balance, isn't it, in the middle of kind of, if we're all living out the best of our signs, both our sun sign and our moon sign and all the rest of the zodiac, as Rachel said, we've got a whole chart. How we find somewhere in the middle that we can meet each other on those bridges. And I think that's about so many things, where we're at in our lives, our willingness to compromise, our willingness to understand the other person, and whether we have the ability to do it. And sometimes it's not a lack of willingness, it's just we're in a place in our lives where that's too difficult, where there's too much going on. But I think that's really key to kind of matching the mismatching in a way, to kind of meet somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Well
said. And that might be a wrap, Rachel.
I think so. I think that's a really good note to close on. So just thanking everyone who sent
Thank you, everyone.
their comments in the chat, and thank you all for joining us. And next time, I love that idea of doing the natal lunation cycle in relationships.
Absolutely, and please send us your ideas for any other live talks you'd like. We're open to all kinds of ideas.
Wonderful.
Okay. Take
Thank
care,
you,
everyone.
everybody.
Be safe. Take